Welcome to Art by Rick. I'm Rick. Today I'm just going to do a simple abstract painting. I'm going to use several different colors of acrylic paint, but I'm going to use something other than paintbrushes. What I'm going to choose to use today are some palettes, and these are just plastic designs that I've picked up over the years. They're just cut plastic pieces with different edges on them to make different lines and different shapes, combing effects, flat passes, things along that lines. I even, before I bought these, used pieces of corrugated cardboard, just simple things like this, to drag the painting along, or drag the paints along the canvas. In order to give it some depth and some interesting techniques, I'll do some strokes with different size palette knives, just to kind of give it a little bit of interesting look. So I'm going to lay the paint on the canvas in different directions, different colors, doing some overlays, doing some mixes and so on and so forth, to just come up with something that's interesting to look at, that's quite colorful to put on the wall. I'm choosing to use a flat canvas today, stretched canvas over wood like I always do. This is going to be a 20 by 24 inch canvas that I have here on the table. I have this canvas right now raised up off the table, and I'll show you what that looks like on some paper cups, because what I'm going to first do is I'm going to use some black paint to seal around the edges of the canvas, so when it's hanging on the wall it has a little bit of a finished look. I might get some drips off depending on how thick I put the paint on the canvas, but let's start by just doing our edging work on this particular canvas. Now, in order to show the canvas, I've changed the camera progress. My head is cut off a little bit here, but I'm here. See, the canvas is in front of me on the table. As I said, it's raised up on paper cups. You can see the cups that are underneath it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to seal the edges of the canvas with some paint. So I prefer using a brush. The brush sometimes overlays on the canvas itself, but I'm going to cover that with different colors paints. So what I always do in order to not be too thick is I'll use a paper plate, simple as this. The paper plate allows me to spread the paint a little bit so that I can have a little bit more control on it. So let's begin doing that with just a standard, about a 2-inch brush that I'm going to use. Some artists use their fingers, some use a sponge. I like using a brush, so let's begin doing that. I'm going to take the paint and I'm going to just put it on the paper plate. Just a blob of paint like that. Dip my brush in, kind of spread it around a little bit just to get some coverage on the brush. And I'm going to begin by just covering the edges here. Now again, as I said, I like to do the edges of the canvas to kind of give it a finished feel. And what I'm doing is I'm stroking from the bottom of the edge and pulling up on this to just seal the edge of the canvas, trying not to get too much paint on the front of the canvas. You will get a little bit of an overspill, but that's all right, because like I said, I'm going to be dumping some paint on this canvas, and that's going to maybe drip off the sides. I don't know, we'll see how that goes. But again, I'm just kind of sealing the canvas up here, sealing the edges. I like to raise it on the paper cups, and I do that specifically so that it's not going to stick to the table. I've had paintings do that in the past, which is a little surprising when you go to pick the painting up and it's glued to your tabletop. You know, not fun, but not too bad. I mean, you could still, you know, pull it up if you're careful. I've ruined many a tablecloth because my painting has stuck to the top of the table. But again, like I said, so I'm just using my paint. I'm stroking from the bottom, kind of going up a little bit, just to give this a black thing. I'm going to walk around to the front of the canvas here. So I'm kind of off to the side, just so you can see me doing the edge here. So again, I'm taking the paint and I'm just mixing it in my plate, and I'm going from the bottom of this, and I'm just kind of stroking up, trying to give myself some good coverage just on the edge, just making the edge black. I'm just sealing the edge of the canvas, just real simple. Sometimes when this starts to dry, it shrinks a little bit, so I may have to come back and do a little bit of a touch-up. But again, I'm just doing this for the purpose of sealing the edges of the canvas. And I've chosen black because I want the painting to stand. Unlike if I was doing an acrylic pour where I would have this really dripping all over the place. This kind of just gives me a seal on the edge. So there we go. Just very simple. Sealing the edge of the canvas. Okay, so that basically starts that. Now the next thing that I'm going to do with this particular canvas is I'm going to start laying my paints down. And what I'm going to do with this, as far as the paints are concerned, is I'm just going to lay my colors and pick my knives. So I'm going to pick the first knife I'm going to use is just one with a kind of a flat edge to it. And I'm just going to drag the paint. And I'm going to do some black first on the canvas here, just to put some black lines on them. We'll see what that looks like. So here's my paint. I'm using some black. I'm just going to make some dots on here, just like that. I think I'll do, 5, maybe, I don't know, 7 dots, real simple. And then using this flat plastic knife, I'm just going to drag the paint. So I'm dragging it. I'm just going to drag the black paint on the canvas. That's all I'm doing, it's just dragging it. And I've chosen to drag this particular black. I'm going this way from the left to the right in dragging the canvas. And then I'll let some of this extra just kind of dribble off. Again, this is going to be multicolored. So now we'll let this set up. I'll let some of this drip off the palette knife here as I'm dripping. I'll zoom in the camera and I'll show you how I do some of the other colors that I'm going to do on this. So let's let this set up, and then we'll pick another color and we'll go in a different direction, and we're just going to keep layering colors on this one by one until we achieve the look that we'd like. Okay, so while I was off camera, I added a couple of more colors to this abstract painting that we're going to do. I went in different directions. When I was adding the black, I went from my left to the right, and then as that set up and dried, I added some red and went the opposite direction from the bottom facing me to the top. And then when that dried, I added some blue and I went on an angle, kind of going across this way. And I used this flat-edged piece of plastic in order to make those movements with the paint, just adding some dots and going from there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some green to this, and I'm going to try to add the green in an opposite direction. So I'm going to come down from my upper corner to me and come down across this way with some green and just kind of streak that going from here, and then I'll let that set up. So I'll hold this up so that you can get a better look at it. This is what we have so far, and I'm going to continue to layer some colors on this. So let me get ready to do the green on this particular painting. So I have this on my cups. I'm going to stand up now from here. Okay. And now I'm going to add the green onto the painting here. So let me start to add my green. So I'm just using some basic, this is deep green. It's basically the color that's here. And again, the way I'm going to do this is I'm doing this all with a dot technique, where I'm just putting a dot on, a couple of dots here and there in some of the blank areas. And then I'm using the flat side of this plastic thing to just draw the paint down and make some streaks on this. So that's what I'm going to do here. I found this dot that's up here. I'm just putting my thing and I'm making some streaks on it. And again, I'm drawing this in such a way where the colors are kind of seeing through each other, where you can see the other colors laying underneath it. So that's really all I want to do with the green. All right, now I know that's kind of boring with that, doing the green that way. But again, I'm just adding the green, and I'll tilt this up so that you can see it. Now I'll let this set up, and then what my plans are is once this is set up, I will start to do some designs on it by using some of the more creative sides of these flat things that I have to make some zigzags and some wonderful signs in here. The idea that I'm going for here is I'm using different color acrylics, and I'm going to cover this whole canvas and make some interesting designs in it so that when you're looking at it, you can see all the colors playing off of each other. So let's let this set up, and then I'll come back. I'm going to zoom the camera in so you can see what I'm going to do when I start to give this a little bit more of an interesting feel to it with some design. So now I have 4 different colors on this canvas. I started with the black. I added some red, some blue, and some green. And I used the smooth palette to just drag those colors across the canvas. Now this canvas is dry, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some detail to this. So now it's time to use some lighter colors because these are all darker colors that are here. So what I've chosen to do is I'm going to use this yellow paint, and I'm do the same procedure, only this time instead of doing dots, I'm going to do little lines. So I'm just going to squirt some paint on here and just make little lines like this. And I'll do 5 of them just to make 5 lines. Not too much. I want to use some character here, so I'm going to use this tool. This is a triangle. It has a ridged edge on the end of it, and I'm going to use this to drag, and I'm going to follow the same pattern that I did with the other colors, with these lighter colors. In this case, I'm going to go from the top of the canvas to the bottom of the canvas, my top to the bottom. You're looking at this upside down. So here's what I'm going to do with this. I'm just going to drag through the yellow paint just like that. Okay, just dragging through. Very simple, right? Now what I'll do is I'll add another bright color to this, and I'm going to do the same thing. So let me clean this off. I have my paper, my trusty paper towel. We'll clean this off here. I'll pick a color paint to use. Oh, in this case here, I think I'll use I'm going to use a little pink. Some pink paint here. This might look interesting. And I'll make my lines going a different direction. This case here, it's a little sloppy, but I'm just going to do that. And I'll use something else. I want a little bit bigger of a drag on this. So this particular piece has a little wider of a drag on it. So I'll drag this way. Again, I'm trying to create some dimension here. So there we go on this. Let me just add a little bit more on the end. And I'll drag. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to let this set up because these are kind of thicker lines. And then I'll come back and I'll add some more to this. All right, I'm going to tilt this up a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So these were the little lines and stuff that I put on there using those palettes that have the edges. So now I'm going to do some kind of a ribbon style with some light blue paint. I'm going to be very careful not to touch the pink or the yellow here because I don't want it to spread. So let me do that. Again, this is just layering colors. My goal here is to fill this whole canvas with different colored paints and designs and making something to look at. This is an abstract. You know, abstracts are fun to do. You can be as creative as you want. You can do as much as you want. And the idea is for the viewer to be able to look at it and see whatever they want to see and enjoy the art form the way that it is. So I'm going to use some of this blue paint that I have here. It's light blue. And I'm going to squirt some, just kind of blobbing it here because I'm going to spread this around a little bit. So let's just do this. We don't want to, we're going to kind of use this up a little bit. I'm going to use another one of these plastic knives. This one has a really nice serrated edge on the end of it. So I'll use this one to kind of drag. And I'm going to do kind of a dragging type motion as I go through these. So I'll put some paint on here and I'm going to just drag through it. Kind of making like a ribbon shape. There. And again, I'm just kind of dragging it in different directions, just making sure that I get some coverage, some lines. It's kind of a ribbon effect. Again, just using the wide teeth that are on this to kind of get that spread it out. You can drag the paint in any direction that you want as you're doing this, but the idea here is to just try and get it to spread a little bit to give you some interesting lines to look at. Okay, so oops, one more spot here. And sometimes I have fun just by cleaning the palette knife off. You know, just kind of using it and rubbing it in different areas just to get the excess paint off. It gives me a few little interesting, you know, highlights and streaks and things like that to look at. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'll take my paper towel, piece of paper towel. I like to make sure that I clean the tools that I use off right away rather than leaving them, because sometimes you get so creative you forget to clean these things, and then the paint dries and it's a little harder to scrape off. All right, so we got some blue on there now with our pink and our yellow, which is overlaying our black, red, blue, and green. So now what we might do is we might add some brighter colors to this. So our next level, or the next thing that I'm going to do, is I will add some brighter colors, some brighter designs, and I may try to do some spirals with my spiral brush. So let's let this set up, and I'll be back to put that next layer on. Okay, so I'm at the next day. I let this set up overnight. And I've added my multicolors on, just like we've been doing. You know, we did some just strokes with different colors on the canvas, and then I put some other colors on, and I used these different types of plastic tools that have serrated edges on them so I can make some designs. Now I'm going to have some fun with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a special tool that I like. It's this little brush. This is actually a dishwashing brush. You put the soap in here and supposedly you can scrub your dishes and stuff with it. I like it because it makes some interesting marks on my paintings, and I can also spin it and make little circles and spirals and things like that. So I'm going to do that with this brush. I'm going to do two different colors. I picked out some purple. I picked out some bright orange. I'll take those colors and I'll dump them on a paper plate. I'll mix my little brush, and then I'm going to apply it to this canvas that's sitting in front of me so that I can make those spirals. So let me just change the camera around so I can zoom in. You can watch what we're doing, and then we'll see if we're satisfied with the painting and whether we'll call it finished or not. Okay, so again, I got this all set to go. All right, so I'm going to just put my plate here. I'm going to put a little paint on this. I have a little purple that I'm just going to drip on here like that. And then I'm going to add a little orange. This is part of my, what I used to call my carnival set of paints. This is a brand new one, so just excuse me while I open this. All right, let's get this opened. All right. So there we go. We got this open now. I'll just pour some paint on here. Okay. And now I'll have some fun with my brush strokes. Let me just fix this here for a minute. Okay. Here we go. All right, here's my little brush tool. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to dip it into the paint. A little bit on that side, a little bit on this side, and then I'm going to apply it onto my canvas. So we'll pick some empty spots here and we're just going to do this. I'm just making some swirls and some drags and just different characters onto the canvas to just make some interesting marks. I'm giving this a little bit of a twist as I'm kind of going along to, again, try to give it some character. I'm making sure I get towards the edges here because I wanted to cover this whole canvas with my paint. And what I can do here is I don't have to necessarily do, twists. I can drag this, I can spin it, I can just do different, angles and whatever on here. So there we go. I just have some lines and some marks on here. All right, so very simple. I'll show you what I did here. Just making some lines and some simple things on here just to make it interesting to look at. Now I'll do some dragging and some drips, and then I think I'll be satisfied with the way that this looks. So let me just give it a little minute to set up here, and then I'll go to the next stage real quick. Now, in an attempt just to lighten this up a little bit, I mixed some black paint, and I'm just going to make some drool lines on this. So I have some black paint in a cup, and I'm just going to take it on my popsicle stick here, get it to drip a little bit, and I'm just going to allow it to drip and line and just do interesting streaks on the canvas itself. Again, there's no rhyme or reason behind this. I'm just trying to get some interesting lines on here, some interesting things to look at. Maybe we'll do a little bit of a spiral on here, get a little bit of the gravity working on the black, and we'll just kind of zigzag through here. And to lighten this up a little bit, I'll use a different color. Okay. And now I'm going to use a little bit of the tan that I made here. Again, this is just kind of drawing some lines and some zigzags and just some interesting spirals and just some things to look at as you're looking at this painting. And then I'm going to finish this with something very special that I like to do to kind of give it a little bit of a highlight. So there we go. We might add a little bit of white on this just to lighten it a little bit. But there we go. Okay. All right. So let's let this set up a little bit and then we'll finish our piece. All right, this is set up now and I'm going to finish this piece. And what I'm just going to do on this is I'm going to add something very special to it. I took a paper plate and I put on this paper plate some gold, some silver, and some white paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these palette knives. This one here has a nice point on it. This one's a little smaller. And all I'm going to do is just make some streaks on the painting to finish it. So let's start with a little bit of white. I'll dip my knife in just to get a little paint on it. And I'm just going to make some streaks. That's all, just making some lines. Then I'll put in some of the silver on here, and then I'm going to finish with some gold. And that's really all I want to accomplish on this, is just adding some of that. So let's just take a quick look at this. So here's our abstract painting. What we've done with this is we've layered several colors down first. Then we did some texture design with a couple of different colors on it. We finished by doing a little drooling of 2 more colors, and then added some stripes on just with our side of our knife, just to give it a little bit of interesting color. This painting took several days to do because I layered the paint as I just described. So when you're doing an abstract, you have to remember sometimes you can lay it down and do it in a couple of hours. Sometimes it takes a couple of days, or in this particular case, I filmed doing this painting over the course of a week because I had to let each piece of layer dry in order to finish this. The way that I plan to hang this on the wall is I'm going to actually turn it around and hang it this way, which is the way I've been looking at it as I've been painting it. So I thank you very much for watching. My name is Rick, and this has been Art by Rick. Go paint, and I'll see you next time.
Nutmeg TV has been providing community television for over 30 years. We needed some studio upgrades, and Ion Bank believed in us. You're working with partners who understand who you are, and Ion Bank does that. It's community banking at its best.
Step into our store and discover a stunning array of dancewear. Introducing Dancingly Yours, your one-stop shop for all things dance and delight for ages 2 to 92. From tiny tutus to energetic tap shoes, our store is a treasure trove of dance essentials. At Dancingly Yours, we offer an extensive collection of dancewear and accessories that cater to all styles and levels. We carry top brands and the latest fashion trends. From ballet to hip-hop, lyrical to jazz, ballroom to liturgical, as well as gymnastics, you'll find the best selection right here at Dancingly Yours. But we're not just a store. We're a community that celebrates the joy of dance. Our expert team is passionate about dance, just like you. So we're here to assist you in finding the perfect fit. And the best part, Dancingly Yours offers competitive pricing in-store and online. Dancingly Yours, easy to get to and worth the trip from anywhere, right on Route 10 in Plainville.